Hi team. Today you're going to be reading the text bread baking now and then. I'm already thinking about the genre when I read the title bread baking now and then, and when I see this picture of someone rolling out dough, and it looks like rolling that dough up to create bread when they bake it. To me, this picture and this title make me think about whether it's fiction or nonfiction. I'm going to skim the text to keep considering if it's fiction or nonfiction. Did you know that bread is one of the earliest human inventions? Bread is a food made of... Okay, this already sounds like the author wrote this to teach me something about bread. It already sounds like they wanted me to know it was one of the earliest human inventions. As we read this text, we're going to be thinking, what does the author want to teach me about bread? We know they want to teach me about how it was to bake bread, how it is now baking bread, and how it was back then, so like a long time ago. So I know this text is going to be talking about how to bake bread now and how people baked bread a long time ago. Once I read the text, I'm going to write down the main idea, and my main idea will definitely be about what the author taught me about baking bread now versus then. Was it the same? Is it different? What did the author want me to learn? Then I'm going to answer the questions. As you go through these questions, you need to use the text and your brain to help you. Number 1, what have people been doing for 30,000 years? Well, this was written in the text. Go back and find it. Pick the answer that matches the text. The sequence of bread baking by the ancient Egyptians is described in the passage. When ancient Egyptians first baked bread, what happened before the flour was mixed with water? Okay, they told me it's in the passage, and then they asked me a question about what happened before the flour was mixed with the water. So I need to go back to the passage, and I need to scroll and find the section that talks about when Egyptians first baked bread, and I need to find specifically the part where flour was mixed with water. Then I need to look before that part and tell what happened right before. The text has the answer for you. Bread was the most important source of carbohydrates for ancient Egyptians because they did not have rice or potatoes. What conclusion does this evidence support? Okay, this is another one of those examples where, like, this is the proof. They gave you the proof, and they want to know what sentence down here this proof is proving. So as we read A, B, C, D, we're going to ask, does this blue highlighted sentence prove what I just read? So like ancient Egyptians did not borrow foods from other cultures. Let's read. Bread was the most important source of carbohydrates for ancient Egyptians because they did not have rice or potatoes. I don't really think that has anything to do with not borrowing foods from other cultures. They still could be borrowing. I don't know. They might still borrow food from other cultures. To me, A does not match this sentence. I need to go find something that does match this sentence. Number 4, what kind of climate did ancient Egypt have? Okay, well that's the kind of weather, and you can find that in the text. Go find it, pick the answer that matches. Number 5, what is this passage mostly about? All right, well we read the title, we read the whole text, and we wrote our main idea. You know what this was mostly about. Pick the answer that makes the most sense. Number 6, read the following sentences. Egypt gets little rain. Ancient Egyptian farmers relied on the annual flooding of the Nile River to irrigate their fields. What does the word irrigate mean? Now, this is a context clue situation. Remember, we're going to read everything they gave us, and it's going to give us hints about what irrigate means. Then we're going to try to replace the word irrigate with each choice. And we're going to read it again with that choice to think, does that make sense? For example, Egypt gets little rain. Ancient Egyptian farmers relied on the annual flooding of the Nile River to dry something out, their fields. Would they want the river to dry their fields? I don't think so. A doesn't make sense. So now let's replace irrigate with supply with water and see if that makes more sense. You need to pick the one that makes sense and means the same thing as what the sentence was already trying to say. Number 7, Choose the answer that best completes the sentence below. Most breads today are made from 4 ingredients: blank, flour, water, salt, and yeast. Oh, okay. So this is where we have to choose one of these connecting words. And this has nothing to do with the text. This is our brain, and this is about word meaning. If you don't know what these words mean, maybe you pull up another tab and you search the definition of those words. Like you're looking up in a dictionary. That is one way to find out by yourself what those words mean. Okay? Most breads today are made from 4 ingredients: blank, flour, water, salt, and yeast. To me, this first sentence is telling me that it's going to be 4 ingredients. And then they tell me those 4 ingredients. So these sentences are connected, and these 4 ingredients are the ingredients they just told me. So how can I connect those? Thus usually means so because of that. Also means and, or as well as. Ultimately is the climax of something. So you would say ultimately as the ending of something. Namely kind of means for example, or speaking of. Most breads today are made from 4 ingredients: blank, flour, water, salt, and yeast. Which one of these words connects the names of those 4 ingredients to the ingredients? Only one of these makes sense. What is yeast and what does it do? Okay, these are your short answers. You can find that in the text. Go find it. Type it. You can say, yeast is blank. It does blank. I know because the text says blank. Describe the sequence by which grain ends up as bread in a store. Well, until I read the passage, I'm not really sure, but you guys already read it. So go back, find where they talked about how grain ends up in a store. And then write it down. How does grain end up as bread in a store? Write it from the text. Tell how you know. How has bread baking changed over time? Support your answer using information from the passage. That was what this whole text was about. You're going to turn around the question. Bread baking has changed over time because in the beginning, blah, blah, blah. Now, blah, blah, blah. I know because in the text it says. Good luck.